Good evening, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our brother Alok. We are in the book of the Traveler of the Worlds, Canto 11, Kingdoms and Godheads of the Greater Mind, page 266, and we begin with Archmasons of the Eternal Thaumaturge.
So, this word archmason, and in Indian mythology, it's there in Greek mythology also. Hephaestus, the god who built the worlds.
Yes.
So, in Indian mythology, you have Vishwakarma. Now in the drive towards monism, we have lost contact with these various architects and builders, which has been not a very good development because it doesn't explain creation. So there is a big hiatus between the creator and the creation, because there is the one and there is right here the struggling world. But if we really want to understand creation and have an impact on it, we have to understand all these forces. This knowledge was there in ancient times. You have the Greek mythology, you have Egyptian mythology to an extent, and of course the Indian mythology, where it's described in great detail. Even there is a puja, Vishwakarma puja in India, is kept alive through a living tradition, wherein you prayed, worship the builder of the worlds. There are marvelous stories. So now you can see where he is placed, archmason. And whenever even on earth something has to be made, and there is a very in fact symbolic story. For example, Dwarka and the dwelling place for Shiva. There is a palace on Kailash. So all these are built by this archmason. And now we will understand what it means here. He is the primary one.
Of the eternal thaumaturge.
Yes.
The eternal magician.
Yes. Magician. Who, because he is free. There are no rules and laws. So you have to really create that, process. You have to make a process.
Yes.
And that's where the whole problem comes. Because in trying to make a process out of the free infinite, you limit in certain ways. And that's what we will see running throughout as a common theme. Molders and measurers of fragmented space, they have made their plan of the concealed and known, a dwelling house for the invisible king. It's a very early writing of Sri Aurobindo before coming to Pondicherry. It's a very interesting piece of writing where he has titled it as God the Invisible King. And space and time are nothing but, for his dwelling place. And naturally, whatever dwelling place you may build, it will always fall short, because he's infinite. So space will keep on expanding. That thing will also come subsequently. That which is eternally expanding, you beat it into a curve. So when the scientists study, they study the archmason and his process. They cannot know what is beyond. So, obeying the Eternal's deep command, they have built in the material front of things this wide world kindergarten of our young souls. Now you see in these two lines, material front of things. And what is this entire material universe? Not just speaking of the earth. This entire material universe is a kindergarten, meaning thereby we are still playing with mud of matter.
And he makes it one word.
Yeah.
Hyphenating world
Yes.
kindergarten.
World kindergarten.
The whole
This is the
world.
original school. Yeah. This wide world kindergarten of young souls, where the infant spirit learns through mind and sense to read the letters of the cosmic script. So this is the eternal Veda, the knowledge which is behind everything. That's why if you really go through the Vedanta in certain sense, though it helped understand the essence of the Vedas, but it also lost something. Many people don't know, like if you go to the Vedas, they speak about marriage, they speak about children, they speak about everything. Because the whole creation is included in that. That's why you see Sri Aurobindo speaks about secret of the Vedas. He doesn't just talk about Vedanta, which later on the more modern intellectually oriented gurus, because it's conveniently simpler to talk of the essence. But in the Veda, there is a knowledge behind everything. So when we read through mother's writings, one way to look at it is that, well, she has made everything so simple and brought down to a level. But the other part, that she has touched everything, every detail and specifics from that eternal standpoint, that it becomes a Veda in its own right.
And Sri Aurobindo reveals the
Secret
of the Vedas.
So she has actually, it is, the whole thing is revealed. So the cosmic spirit, cosmic script, and study the body of the cosmic self. So body of the cosmic self is the material universe, and search for the secret meaning of the whole. So this is the kindergarten where we have to study the body of the cosmic self, not the cosmic spirit, and we have to slowly build the whole, which is so vast and appalling. To all that spirit conceives, they give a mold. Persuading nature into visible modes, they lend a finite shape to infinite things. So the spirit conceives. That's the real idea. It's typically like, when a person goes to who comes first? The architect. And you say, what I want this space to, to be a bit meditative. So this is how you tell an architect. He says, okay, fine. So I'll do this way. I'll keep the walls like this. The color will be like this. Now, actually, this is the conception. The space should be meditative. Or the space should be a little more sober. Or the space should be a little more playful. But now, that has to be given a visible shape. So that's what they do. They pick up these truths, the idea from within, and give it shapes. And what a variety of shapes. And that way, when we look at universe, we'll see a very interesting connecting thread. For example, lion. That's whole way to, even in with children I have seen. And say a very simple way to introduce them to the divine from their everyday experience. So when they go to zoo sometimes, and I have interacted and asked them, okay, you saw the lion, yes. So what do you think the lion really represents? What does the lion stand for? And they come out with saying that, strength. So all that you need to say is quiet strength, because, you have to point out that, was he restless? No. So there is a strength which is a quiet power. Or the sea, which is very common experience. Children come, they see the sea. And you ask them, what do you think you feel when you see the sea? So after a few questions, some child will say vastness. So it's like, now vastness is the idea behind. Now how do you create it? So that's where their role comes in. They pick up vastness of the divine. They pick up infinity of the divine and give multiple form, because there's the only way you can recreate infinity.
Where did the archmasons work from?
This is primarily the higher mind. That's where you give concrete form. Primarily. That's where actually though the formatures start earlier, but in higher mind there is a tendency to fix everything. And that's why all the religions, this is the birthplace. The moment you say that God is merciful, you have a contact and you have an experience. But the moment you enter the realm of religion, because form is not just a material form, so then you have rules and do's and don'ts and totems and taboos which get associated with that. Because then this mind will question, if God is all merciful, why is there deaths? Why do people die in this creation? Why is there disease and suffering? So we'll see all this. It cannot understand or fathom, but for every mood, it must create something, and that's where the problem comes. Say the divine is all peaceful, but the divine is also the storm. So how do you bring them together? In creation, there is either peace or there are volcanoes. But actually, if you go deep into the heart of nature, you will see they coexist. If we are not involved in that, and when you watch from a surface, you will see that even in the rising of a tsunami, there is a joy which you can capture when you watch it from a distance on National Geographic. But if we are close to it, then because we are personally involved and we get frightened, so that's where the problem comes.
Now, the higher mind, we are in the greater mind here.
Yes,
Synonymous?
yes, no. The greater mind now, after the higher mind, he will come to the illumined. So there'll be a subtler
No,
race.
but I mean, where the masons are formulating.
Yeah, that's the higher mind.
Right.
Yes. So, yes, I forgot. Okay, so we move further. Persuading nature into visible modes, they lend a finite shape to infinite things. Nature into visible modes. As I said, one day I had a very beautiful, I can't call it experience, but a kind of bhava. Bhava is also a kind of experience. So, walking on the road, the winters had just started, and it was raining in between. So suddenly the sky was a mix of clouds which had come up, and a little beyond it one could still see the blue lining of the sky above. So the bhav that came in was, Krishna and Kali are together. Now it is a nature's visible mood. This is more tangible. So if you really look at everything in nature, it's a mood. How do you experience Kali? By a tsunami. It's mighty. She changes time. Actually, it changes. It changed the life of many. Not only those who had gone and probably born in different, portions of time, but also those who were left behind. Their life changed forever. We may cry or we may be happy. We may say good or bad. That's our human judgment. But that's not how the gods work. So it changes time. It changes many things in the entire way a group of humanity operates. So much of the development we see in Pondicherry, including that beach and all that has come up post tsunami, leave aside the human lives, the new habitations, different jobs. People had to branch out. Many children who were, taking up traditional works, they discovered or realized that no, they must branch out into other kinds of jobs. So Kali's action is like that. We may feel very bad about it, but that's because our human sentiment looks things in small sections. Each power that leaps from the unmanifest, leaving the largeness of the eternal peace, they seized and held by their precision eye and made a figurant in the cosmic dance. So multiple, each god, the aspects that we normally see of gods, the images and the pictures, in Indian mythology they are very much preserved, are largely the creation of the higher mind plane. Shiva with a snake around, it's symbolic. So, you have to look at it like, or Vishnu sleeping on the cosmic serpent. So it's the cosmic serpent which is evolving, it's unfolding. So as it unfolds itself, the earth goes up and up. It's an evolutionary cycles, and at the heart of it there is the cosmic being on the ocean of milk, which is knowledge. So it's a symbolic image, and they create these images. So when seekers or sadhaks enter into this realm, this image in some form flashes before their eyes. Only they don't know there is a yet greater beyond. Vishnu is not confined to this. Original Vedic Vishnu is like a wide eye extended into heaven. That's how Vishnu, if you read the deity in the Vedas. But that is a different altogether. In its free caprice, they bound by rhythmic laws and compelled to accept its posture and its line in the wizardry of an ordered universe. So rhythmic laws. So we have dance forms, for example, and each of these dance form is inspired with some bhava. So you have the Shiv Tandav, for example. You have even Shiv Tandav Stuti. Actually, if you read the Shiv Tandav Stuti, it's very interesting. The marvel of the poet that in Ramayana there is a Stuti which has been done by Ravana for Shiva and another by Rama. And you can make out the difference just by the play of sounds and the rhythm and the meter, that this is by a gigantic being, another by somebody who has learnt humility and surrender. But they are both addressed to Shiva. So, for everything they created a rhythm and a meter. But the divine is free and infinite. He is not confined to it. He can intervene in his own way.
In the free caprice,
Yes.
they bound by rhythmic laws.
Yes.
It's interesting.
And they make laws out of it.
Yes.
The all containing was contained in form. So beautiful. Sometimes you have those marvelous lines. I mean, every line is marvelous, but look at the paradox of this. The all containing was contained in form. Oneness was carved into units measurable. The limitless built into a cosmic sum. Unending space was beaten into a curve. Indivisible time into small minutes cut. The infinitesimal masked to keep secure the mystery of the formless cast into form. You see, these 6 lines are really, there is like a contrast that you see from this angle. It is everything as a number, rhythm, law, form. It is trying to conjure something which actually exceeds all of this. The freedom of the infinite. But it puts into shape, number, form. So,
Indivisible time
indivisible time.
into small minutes.
It's a single flow. But we tend to, it's, and there are many analogies like the Ganges. So, in Varanasi, you have these different ghats. So, I think there are 80 ghats. That's how the last one is 80, but I may be mistaken. It starts from Varuna, so Varanasi. So, there are many ghats. Now, it is believed that at a particular ghat, if you release the dead, it gets liberation. So I remember as a child going into the river on the boat. It's a very strange sight. It fills you with vairagya if you see that. Plenty of dead bodies are burning, and then all this, you have the story. But this used to struck me, Ganges is Ganges. How does it matter which ghat? Now I understand that it was more for a convenience. You can't be having all over all dead bodies burning. So when it was started, it's a convenience that and then it was connected to a story of Shiva, showing himself up to Raja Harishchandra and so on and so forth. But then human mind has fixed it now. So, which is good in a way because it saves it keeps the rest of the things clean. But we have a tendency to cut it into bits and pieces, that which is actually free and infinite and indivisible. Invisibly their craft devised for use, invincibly their craft devised for use, the magic of sequent number and science spell, design's miraculous potency was caught, laden with beauty and significance. And by the determining mandate of their gaze, figure and quality equating joined in an inextricable identity. So figure, quality and pattern, this whole science of fractals came up, and then patterns, the number, again you see a side of Indian philosophy where everything, not only zero was known, pi was known, and the distance between sun and earth is known, the distance between moon and sun is known, everything, you go through that. That's how in Indian almanac Panchang for thousands of years, they predict when is it going to be an eclipse. It's a prediction to the dot.
I saw on YouTube a video on Ramanujan's lost notebook.
Yes.
And one paragraph explained about the black holes.
Yes, I'm glad you reminded. I think you may be aware of his story.
Oh, yes.
He was subtly identified with one of these beings high up there. He used to actually, as a child, his mother also used to worship the deity. I think it was Saraswati, and he would also go to the temple, and he started receiving inspirations. So actually much of his mathematics would come as a direct inspiration. And that's why people couldn't understand that how he got it. but he got it right.
Yes.
When he got
And
the
he
equation,
said it
yeah,
right.
it was right. So they couldn't refute it, but they never knew how he got it.
Yes.
And he couldn't live long. So, possibly that energy could not be held for long. He fell sick and eventually, of course, he died. But it's amazing that how he was receiving inspiration and understanding the universe through number and form. On each event, they stamped its curves of law and its trust and change of burdened circumstance, a free and divine incident no more. This is the highest truth. You go beyond cause and effect. If you read Swami Vivekananda's speech which he gave in Chicago, he speaks of time, space, causality. And that's how we understand the divine. But a time comes and he says, but Brahman is beyond causality. All this idea of this happened because of this is still we are moving within the frame and realm of the cosmic divine. Not yet the transcendent. So there are links, but the way we link it, otherwise very difficult to understand. How, as we know, Augustine or Jagan and Maghai, how, or Valmiki, Ratnakar, how they changed
Yes.
almost overnight. Sri Aurobindo says, whose conversions will scandalize spiritual history. So if we try strictly to see as cause effect, and sometimes goes to absurd levels. I've seen in India somebody have a heart attack and worse still, somebody had an accident and he's lying in the hospital bed and that fellow is very depressed. When I went to see him in the evening, a colleague, and he says that, friend, I want to ask you something. I said, yes, please tell me. He said, is it really my karma? I said, why do you ask that? He said, I met with an accident and people are telling me it's your karma. I said, one thing I know that is the truck driver's karma for sure, who hit you, because he was hit by a truck. I said, your karma or not will start now. With what attitude you take it, that becomes your karma. So that was a big relief, because he said, one, I am hit, and on top of it is my fault. Look at the paradox.
Yeah.
I am lying in the hospital with my leg hanging up. And then too, it's my fault.
And everyone's telling him.
Everyone is telling him that, he's hit by a truck. And you don't want to take an action against the truck driver because it's your fault ultimately. So it can go to absurd levels, this cause and effect. So, law of karma is very different than what we think it to be. It's a constant unfolding of the divine. If you really look at it through all this mechanism and process and unfolding. So a free and divine incident no more, at each moment willed or adventure of the soul, it lengthened a fate-bound, mysterious chain, a line foreseen of an immutable plan, one step more in necessity's long march. So whatever the divine has willed, that's how ultimately the curve of destiny will unfold. It doesn't matter. It may take place through this set of circumstances, through another set of circumstances. And always in the cosmic processes you will see a cause. But instead of involving ourselves with that, we should involve itself with the original will which has set the whole thing into motion. And just keep aligning to that. So it gives a new way of approaching the whole law of karma. Unlike the way we now do. Oh, bad karma, so, give some dhanam, do this punyam, light some agarbatti, and it's not needed. I mean, in a way it helps the priests, they have to also educate their children. But the point is that it's not needed. All that is needed to progressively align oneself. And then the whole thing vanishes. A term was set for every eager power, restraining its will to monopolize the world. So, this is all happening within the cosmic realm. So it gives a time for every power. There is very interesting poem of Sri Aurobindo on, it's on Ravana, but the poem is Rakshasa, where all these 7 sages, because these are the sages which determine the flow of events. So they go and ask Krishna, because Krishna is absolute transcendent. They say that when do we call for an end for Ravana? We are not able to, decide. So, Krishna says that, he has to rule for another 1,000 years. 1,000 years! He says, can't help it. It's an evolutionary necessity. So in that poem you understand that out of the Rakshasa and the animal, Asura has to arise. Now, Asura is a kinetic ego of the mind which dominates over the vital ego. So that difference between the Rakshasa and the Asura. Rakshasas are totally unbridled guys on a rampage. Asuras control their nature by their mind, but extremely egoistic. Asuras may be very religious, very self-controlled, very disciplined outwardly, but extremely harsh, very cold, very much, they may be masters in certain aspects of their nature, but always their eye is ultimately again on aggrandizing the ego self. So he says it's necessary. You can't leap from the Rakshasa to the human, but one day he will fall. So then the scene shifts and he is praying, and for each level there is an appropriate god or goddess. So, term for every power. So when he prays, who will come out? Rakshasi. Kali comes as Rakshasi. She is the, he worships power. So he tells that, I want to be immortal. He says, that's not granted. You have a term. So then he says, okay, in that case, may I fall only to a human who will go surpass me. So it's humanization of the Asuric and the Rakshasic element. So that's why there is a term for every power. Because otherwise it wants to monopolize, but it cannot monopolize. So they do a job of limiting, restraining, containing. And that's how they set the ball of time and space rolling, the cosmic play, which is being explained here in some beautiful verses, lines. A groove of bronze prescribed for force and act, and shown to each moment its appointed place, forewilled inalterably in the spiral, huge time loop, fugitive from eternity, as if it is itself.
Line.
I don't know whether I should share or not. Maybe I should share because now the inspiration has come. Somebody was asking once, he said, I don't know when this world will come. A lot of world coming to end, all this started sometime. So, someone said that, according to Quran, the world will end now. It's Qayamat Ka Din, the final judgment day is coming. I said, yes, but for those who believe in Quran. So you must understand, it simply means that the end day is coming for a certain ideological type. So it has to either evolve by transmuting itself. The door is open, maybe through Sufi thought or something, mystic thought. And if you don't evolve, then you have to finish, because that's how it is. So huge time loops. So many 1,000 years, if you really look at it like that. The sword of Islam or the, even Christianity, the way it spread.
2012 was a big one.
Yes. Yeah. But it is a time loop, fugitive from eternity. If you connect to the eternal, you survive, no problem. But if you don't connect, if you fix your thought into a fixed formal religion and you say that's it, it's bound, foredoomed to destruction, you don't have to do anything. It will collapse below its own weight because time will advance. And the moment the wave of time advances, this becomes redundant and defunct. This is what people don't understand, and and one doesn't have to even worry about it, because this is determined by powers that thus far and no further. And one can in certain sense see all this happening. Inevitable, their thoughts like links of fate, imposed on the leap and lightning race of mind, and on the frail, fortuitous flux of life, and on the liberty of atomic things, immutable cause and adamant consequence. So it is they tie things to fate. Is what? Fate is the consequence of a seeing will, which takes you through these steps. But we don't know the full plan. So we feel ultimately they have to do what the original will is. So if the original will is that you are, the typical example is of Buddha. So original will is that he will become a conqueror, conqueror over the hearts and minds. And so the story goes that his father is told he will either become a great emperor, or he will become a sage who renounces the world. Now look how these forces operate. So the father thinks, oh my God, he will renounce the world. No, 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 I will not show him any dark side. So he confines him into a palace where he is provided all the beautiful things and luxuries. Not realizing he is becoming an instrument to make him renounce. Because had Buddha grown up seeing death and disease, probably he would have just got used to it. Till 21, he never encountered it. So understandably, a young man walks out of the palace and suddenly looks at death, disease, old age, which he has never known, and it shocks him that life has this side also. So, how everything becomes a feeder in this great game, which looks like chance, but behind it there is a greater unfolding. Many stories like that which reveal this subtle truth. Idea gave up the plastic infinity. So, here, idea in the highest sense, the real idea, which can express itself in millions of ways. But then each soul chooses a certain curve and says, okay, so be it. And that's what we see here when people came to Sri Aurobindo. What is the idea? Transformation. But each one made a choice. I'll start with the mind, then doubts and all this. Another starts from the heart. And for each one, a path and curve has been worked out. And it has been worked out actually in detail. So everyone who takes up this yoga picks up out of infinite possibilities one or the other curve and goes through those experiences which are necessary. It has all been done, sorted out, settled, and you have to just walk with trust and endurance. And even behind this choice, there is the ultimate future that you are going to become. But idea itself is plastic. Transformation can take place in countless ways. The moment you put a step, you have started fixing its sequence. Of course, one can retrace, all this freedom is always there. There is a freedom in each phase of fate. Idea gave up the plastic infinity to which it was born and now traced out instead small separate steps of chain work in a plot. That's it. It's like when you are in front of Himalayas, you want to climb. Okay, climb. But you can't climb all over the Himalaya. So you decide, okay, I'll climb from this part. So you will meet the experiences which will come through that. You will climb. You have to just move on. If you sit down saying, oh my God, it's very difficult, I am doomed, I made a mistake, that's the only thing which can delay. It's a reminder to us also. The fact that one has the call and entered the path means one is destined now for the inevitable transformation. Nothing can stop you except your own, as the mother says, you sit on the path and say it cannot be done. Even then you will be pushed because you cannot sit for long. But if you keep moving, knowing that this is my journey and this may be a very different journey from someone else, but I have chosen to go from this angle, that is the idea which will keep pushing me and find ways to reach that point. Immortal ones, now tied to birth and end, torn from its immediacy of errorless sight. So that's where from the supramental it has come down to this level of higher mind where error prone sight. Knowledge was rebuilt from cells of inference into a fixed body, flask and perishable. Thus bound it grew, but could not last and broke, and to a new thinking's body left its place. This is what happens to scriptures. So it picks up various whatever is happening and builds a knowledge system, a body, which is a rigid body. And you'll be surprised with what conviction people hold these beliefs. I mean, it's not recommended, but when you hear some of these priests, the way they hold with, and for everything they have an explanation, an answer, and which little common sense and little reason you can see that, well, it's not really like that. And because it's not really the totality. It will there will be in there will be gaps. Things will begin to appear. There will be revolt. And Sri Aurobindo speaks of that in the essays on the Gita. Even revolt against the scripture and the doctrine is justified because there is an incompleteness and imperfection in it.
I live in an area of Southern Baptists, and I see that every so often the minister is gone and a new one comes.
Yes.
They found his faults.
Yes. So that's what there is a new thinking's body, and this shift is taking place all over. You have to rethink your understanding of, everywhere you see church, it's going through a massive shift. You see the recent, that's how I look at Sabrimala Rao. You can stick to the past and say that, women cannot enter, and you can explain it on the basis of a sage's tapasya, but times have changed. So, at one point I even put it humorously, the tapasya is over, you don't need to. Women can enter. It's not going to spoil it's going to widen your sense of infinity. But human mind doesn't, and it will be pushed. Even though, strangely, it is coming from strange quarters. It's coming from quarters which are inimical to.
Yes.
But God uses everybody as an instrument at a given point of time. He is not bound by who becomes the instrument. Duryodhana was such a good instrument to bring all the haughty, arrogant Kshatriyas in one roof. Because Krishna can look at all of them and tell Arjun, now here is your holiday. Please. So that is how times are changing. Somebody was telling me some time back, and people must understand it. There was a time, this Sabrimala is an extreme example. There was a time in India when women who were having periods, they couldn't enter even a kitchen.
Yes.
They leave aside temple. So one lady who came here was telling me, said when I was young and one day there was work going on and I was in conflict what to do because I want to go. So I just didn't tell anybody. And she carried on with everything. Now look at those times that some people observed. So after a month, some relatives are asking in joint family, is your daughter okay? Why? It seems that she's no more having her, every month. Yeah.
Right.
Why? Because I see every day she's going into the kitchen. So this lady asked her that, are you okay? She said, yes. She said, you had your, every month the periods? She said, yes. Then the mother didn't ask anything because he was a devotee of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. She says one of the things that relieved her was because it was uppermost in her mind. When she came here and they asked mother, she said, these are rules of hygiene, have nothing to do with divine. Of course you can come, you can play, you can go to samadhi, you can come. Now you see this liberation is required. Even now probably some remote places are stuck in this idea. Of course we can make new kind of rigid bodies. Let me not speak about them. A cage, I love this word, a cage for the infinite's great-eyed seraphim thoughts.
Wow.
Okay. Was closed with a crisscross of world laws for bars. You cannot go like this, you cannot go like that. The do's and don'ts, God cares least. He looks at that little thing in the heart. All our human laws, rules, regulations, in the end, are devices, contrivances, and they have only a relative practical utility. And that's how they should be understood, practically speaking. But if you make them into absolutes, then you are treading a territory where one day or the other God will break this. So, and hest into a curt horizon's arc. Look at the word curt used in this way. Abrupt, sudden, harsh, curt. Horizon's arc, the irised vision of the ineffable. A timeless spirit was made the slave of the hours. You can't pray to God other than these moments. slave of the hours. So 5 times or 3 times, everywhere it was. Or Sundays. So you have to ask, why can't every time? Now even children understand. I was interacting with these children. I said, what do you think? When can you pray to God? He said, every time. I said, sure. In the bathroom? He said, yes. I said, very good. But why in the bathroom? He said, God is everywhere. I said, very good. You are liberated people. Please go back and teach. Teach the teachers and the parents who may not understand this, that there are no fixed moments. Even fixed relationships. You can treat God as a friend. Why do you have to put him on a pedestal with heavy garlands? He must be feeling so suffocated, wanting to run away from his devotees. Because that's the truth, inner truth. But we fix things and thereby finish it. The arised vision of the ineffable. A timeless spirit was made the slave of the hours. The unbound was cast into a prison of birth. To make a world that mind could grasp and rule. Otherwise you can't understand. So when Kabir was asked, you are taking Rama's name. Rama, Rama. Rama was his mantra, which he received in a strange way. He was asking always for a mantra and his guru wouldn't give because he is from an outcast. His parentage was not known. So he sleeps on one of the ghats, as the story goes. Staircase. These ghats have number of stairs. And early morning, wee hours, not even morning. It's morning only technically. So the guru is going to take a dip in the Ganges. And as he comes down, suddenly his feet touches this boy, young lad, who is deliberately lying there. And as it touches, he says, Ram, 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 Ram. So he says, thank you. I got my mantra. This is Shakti Path. You touched me and you gave me the mantra. So someone asked him that which Rama do you worship? Because we have never seen you go to any Rama temple or this, that. So he says, very beautifully, he says, Ek Ram, Dasharath ka beta. One Rama is son of Dasharath. Ek Ram hai Jagat Pasara. Another one is present, immanent in the entire universe. This whole time and space is that Rama. Ek Ram ghat ghat ka vasi, individual, immanent. Ek Ram hai sabse nyara, the transcendent. All of them are one. So that's the liberated being. But otherwise you fix a time for birth and death and for everything. Because the mind cannot handle. So he's saying, because otherwise for the mind it's impossible. On an earth which looked towards 1,000 suns, that the created might grow nature's Lord, and matter's depths be illumined with a soul, they tied to date and norm and finite scope the million mysteried movement of the one. The limited scope. When mother was asked about the law of karma, he said, my child, but who told you that karma is inescapable? The grace can completely annul and cancel karma. This thought is nowhere there in the scriptures. It can mitigate karma that has been heard. You see, it can completely annul and cancel karma. Who can tie her to cause and effect?